Something about this story feels bigger than a casual dinner photo, and no, it is not just because Cardi B was seen looking stunning in Venice. It feels bigger because when Cardi B appears next to the same man in two different European cities within the same month, the internet does not treat that like a random coincidence. The internet treats it like the opening scene of a romance, a rebound, or a warning sign, depending on which side of the comment section you live on. And right now Cardi B is sitting right at the center of that storm, because after the Paris Fashion Week chatter, Cardi B has now been seen again with Nigerian goalkeeper Maduka Okoye, and suddenly the questions are getting louder than the footage itself. According to TMZ, Cardi B and Maduka Okoye were spotted sitting side by side during a dinner overlooking a Venice canal, and that detail alone is enough to send gossip pages, fan pages, and reaction channels into a full spin cycle. TMZ said there was no public display of affection, no obvious kiss, no official confirmation, and no dramatic announcement. But that almost does not matter in celebrity culture anymore, because the modern internet does not wait for a declaration. The modern internet studies patterns. One sighting is a maybe. Two sightings become a narrative. And once Cardi B becomes the lead character in a narrative, people stop asking what happened and start deciding what it means. That is why this moment matters more than it should. Cardi B is not just any celebrity walking into a restaurant with a high-profile athlete. Cardi B is one of those stars whose personal life has been discussed so loudly, so publicly, and so relentlessly that every new appearance gets filtered through old chaos. People are not looking at Cardi B in Venice as a blank slate. They are looking at Cardi B through the shadow of Offset, through the noise around Stefon Diggs, through months of online discussion about breakups, rebounds, image control, and whether Cardi B is moving from one emotional storm straight into another one. Fair or unfair, that is the lens. And once that lens locks in, every smile, every seat placement, every body language read becomes part of the case file. What makes it even more explosive is the sequence. First Paris. Then Venice. First the fashion world glance that got people talking. Then the canal-side dinner that got people talking louder. It is not just that Cardi B and Maduka Okoye were in the same orbit. It is that the orbit appears to be repeating. Repetition is what turns gossip into speculation and speculation into belief. That is how celebrity stories spiral. Nobody needs a confirmation post when they think they have a timeline. And right now the timeline is doing a lot of work for the public imagination, because it allows people to say, hold on, maybe this is not just a passing interaction. Maybe Cardi B is showing us something without technically saying anything at all. Now here is where this gets interesting. TMZ also reported that Cardi B and Maduka Okoye seemed comfortable, relaxed, and very much at ease around each other. Again, no PDA. That part matters. No official hand-holding, no kiss, no grand romantic gesture for the cameras. But comfort has become its own form of evidence in the online age. If two people look natural together, if they do not seem stiff, if they are seen twice, if the second sighting looks even more familiar than the first, then fans begin filling in blanks that the celebrities never actually filled in themselves. That is the tricky thing Cardi B is dealing with right now. Silence does not stop the story. Silence often gives the audience more room to write one. And let us be honest, Cardi B knows exactly how celebrity optics work. Cardi B did not become Cardi B by misunderstanding how attention moves. Whether this is a romance, a friendship, a strategic public outing, or simply two people enjoying the same social circle, Cardi B understands that being photographed with Maduka Okoye again was always going to land hard online. Especially because this is not an unknown face to the gossip audience anymore. Maduka Okoye is now attached to a viral visual memory. He is no longer just a footballer in the background. He is now the guy from Paris who became the guy from Venice, and because Cardi B is Cardi B, that transformation happened almost instantly. The other reason this is exploding is because people are reading it as a message. Maybe not an official message, maybe not an intentional message, but definitely a message. Every time Cardi B is seen with a new man after public turbulence, the internet immediately starts asking the same question: is she moving on, or is she moving loudly? That distinction matters. A quiet transition tells one story. A very visible transition tells another. And because Cardi B is one of the most watched women in entertainment, people are always trying to decode whether she is healing, flexing, distracting herself, trolling an ex, or simply living her life while the world refuses to mind its business. That is where Stefon Diggs enters the frame, because even without a confirmed statement tying this Venice dinner to any split or fallout, audiences do not consume new Cardi B footage in isolation. They pull in everything they already believe about her recent relationships. If people think Cardi B and Stefon Diggs were rocky, they will watch Cardi B in Venice and call it a rebound. If they think Cardi B is reclaiming her narrative, they will call it a reset. If they think Cardi B thrives in highly visible chaos, they will call it the start of another messy chapter. Same footage. 3 entirely different interpretations. That is why a small dinner clip can trigger such a huge response. With Cardi B, the visual is never just the visual. It is a battlefield for pre-existing opinions. And then there is the image of Maduka Okoye himself. Mystery matters in a story like this. The less the average gossip audience knows about Maduka Okoye, the more dramatic the projection becomes. A new face gives the public room to fantasize, judge, romanticize, and panic all at once. If Cardi B had been seen with someone the audience already fully understood, the discussion might be flatter. But Maduka Okoye still carries novelty. He is recognizable enough to be discussed, yet unfamiliar enough to feel cinematic. That combination is powerful. It makes the story feel fresh while still giving fans a concrete figure to attach their theories to. Newness is fuel in celebrity discourse, and Cardi B just handed the internet a fresh character. What also intensifies this is that Cardi B is not being discussed like a regular woman dating after a complicated season. Cardi B is being discussed like a public symbol. People project their beliefs about self-worth, taste, trauma, fame, motherhood, power, and public humiliation onto Cardi B every single time her love life makes headlines. That means this is never just about whether Cardi B had dinner with Maduka Okoye. It becomes a referendum on Cardi B's judgment. It becomes a referendum on Cardi B's emotional patterns. It becomes a referendum on whether Cardi B is evolving or repeating. And once a celebrity becomes symbolic like that, viewers stop offering curiosity and start offering verdicts. That verdict culture is exactly why the reactions are so extreme right now. One group sees Cardi B and says she is free, rich, glamorous, and allowed to sit next to whoever she wants in Venice without the internet building a courtroom around it. Another group looks at Cardi B and sees a woman allegedly stuck in a cycle of high-drama men, public turbulence, and choices that always seem to come with headlines attached. Then there is a third group that does not even care whether Cardi B and Maduka Okoye are together. They just know the optics are addictive. They know the footage is strong. They know the combination of Cardi B, luxury Europe, an athlete, and romantic ambiguity is catnip for digital culture. That group is not seeking truth. They are seeking entertainment. And if we are speaking frankly, celebrity media is built to reward that exact kind of ambiguity. Certainty ends conversation. Uncertainty multiplies it. If Cardi B posted a flat statement tomorrow and said, "This is just my friend," half the suspense would evaporate. If Cardi B posted a hard launch tomorrow and said, "Yes, this is my man," the mystery would shift into a different phase. But right now the story lives in the most profitable zone possible, maybe. Maybe they are dating. Maybe they are not. Maybe Cardi B is just having dinner. Maybe Cardi B is intentionally being seen. Maybe Maduka Okoye is a new romance. Maybe Maduka Okoye is just a photogenic friend in the right place at the right time. That maybe is doing serious numbers right now. There is also a larger fame pattern at work here, and Cardi B understands it better than most. In celebrity culture, the public rarely allows women to be in transition without making the transition itself a spectacle. The minute Cardi B is no longer cleanly attached to one familiar storyline, the audience rushes to assign her to another. They do not like a gap. They do not like blank space. So if Cardi B is not visibly with one man, they immediately look for the next man. If Cardi B is not publicly crying, they call her unbothered. If Cardi B is seen smiling in Venice, they call it a statement. The public hates ambiguity almost as much as it claims to love privacy, and Cardi B is one of the clearest examples of that contradiction. What keeps this story so hot, though, is that Cardi B's brand has always included contradiction. Cardi B can be funny, raw, chaotic, warm, confrontational, vulnerable, strategic, impulsive, and self-aware almost all at once. That makes Cardi B incredibly compelling, but it also means the audience can find evidence for almost any theory they want to push. Want to argue Cardi B is just outside enjoying life? You can. Want to argue Cardi B is making emotional decisions in public again? You can. Want to argue Cardi B knows exactly how to turn an unconfirmed sighting into a week-long conversation? You can absolutely argue that too. Cardi B's complexity makes her magnetic, but it also makes her easy to narrate from opposite directions. And do not ignore the luxury backdrop, because setting is part of the story. Paris Fashion Week is not the same thing as being spotted at a random lunch stop. Venice Canal dining is not the same thing as being seen in a crowded club for 10 blurry seconds. These are elite, cinematic, highly imageable environments. They elevate the rumor. They make the story feel expensive. They make it feel romantic before anybody has actually confirmed romance. Cardi B in Venice beside Maduka Okoye sounds like a movie title, not a minor social sighting. That matters because aesthetics create emotional momentum. People are not just reacting to Cardi B and Maduka Okoye. They are reacting to the way the scene itself flatters the fantasy. And this is where the story starts splitting into two separate conversations. The first conversation is factual. Cardi B and Maduka Okoye were seen together again, TMZ reported NO PDA, and fans are speculating after a similar Paris moment. That is the clean version. The second conversation is emotional. What does it say about Cardi B if she is moving this way, this fast, this publicly, with this kind of man, in this kind of setting, after the type of drama people already associate with her? That second conversation is far messier, far louder, and far more addictive. Most viral celebrity stories survive because the facts are limited but the feelings are unlimited. There is a reason people keep bringing up Offset too, even when Offset is not physically part of the Venice footage. Offset is part of the emotional archive around Cardi B. The history is too loud to separate. When viewers see Cardi B beside a new man, they are not just comparing Maduka Okoye to Stefon Diggs. They are comparing the entire moment to everything Cardi B and Offset have already put the audience through. Public breakups. Public reconciliations. Public shade. Public embarrassment. Public passion. Cardi B's romantic headlines do not arrive in a vacuum because Cardi B and Offset trained the public to expect intensity. So now whenever Cardi B is photographed in a suggestive context, people do not read it softly. They read it like the first spark before another bonfire. That may be unfair to Cardi B, but it is still real. Once the audience believes your private life is a saga, they stop granting you ordinary moments. A dinner becomes a declaration. A smile becomes strategy. A repeated sighting becomes proof. And Cardi B, more than most stars, lives inside that amplification machine. That is why I think the biggest issue here is not whether Cardi B is dating Maduka Okoye. The biggest issue is that Cardi B no longer controls the emotional volume of her own sightings. The volume is preset. The second her image hits the timeline, the speakers are already maxed out. Now let us talk about Maduka Okoye from a narrative angle, because his role in this story is fascinating. Maduka Okoye is being positioned less like a full person and more like a symbol of possibility. To some viewers, Maduka Okoye represents Cardi B upgrading her scenery, changing her type, entering a more mysterious lane, or at least trying something that feels less predictable than another recycled rap world storyline. To others, Maduka Okoye represents danger because the audience does what it always does with an athlete attached to a famous woman: it fills in personality traits before evidence arrives. They start predicting ego, temptation, incompatibility, and future drama off optics alone. Maduka Okoye becomes a vessel for projection before he even gets to define himself in the story. That is exactly why the next move matters so much. If Cardi B and Maduka Okoye are never seen together again, this could settle into the category of glamorous but overinterpreted celebrity moments. If Cardi B and Maduka Okoye appear together one more time, especially in another intimate-looking setting, then the internet will stop saying maybe and start speaking as if it already knows. That is how fast these stories harden. They do not harden because of formal evidence. They harden because repetition feels like confirmation to the public, even when it technically is not. So whether Cardi B intends it or not, the next visual becomes critical. The next visual will decide whether this is a passing swirl or the beginning of a fully formed headline cycle. And you can already feel the comment section war taking shape. One side is saying, let Cardi B live. Cardi B is grown. Cardi B can sit next to Maduka Okoye, laugh, eat dinner, and enjoy Venice without turning in a relationship report to strangers. Another side is saying Cardi B needs to slow down, protect her peace, and stop giving the public another chapter to dissect. Then a Messier side is saying Cardi B knows exactly what she is doing and loves the reaction just as much as the audience does. That conflict is why this story is viral material. It is not only about Cardi B and Maduka Okoye. It is about what Cardi B represents to different people when she makes even the smallest public move. I also think the lack of PDA is one of the smartest parts of this entire situation, whether it was intentional or not. No PDA keeps the story hot without closing it. No PDA gives Cardi B plausible deniability. No PDA lets supporters defend Cardi B while still allowing skeptics to raise an eyebrow. No PDA means Maduka Okoye stays in the rumor lane instead of crossing fully into boyfriend territory. It is the perfect tension point. Too much intimacy would force a stronger public reaction and maybe even a stronger public explanation. Too little proximity and nobody cares. But seated together, smiling, comfortable, seen twice. That is exactly enough to keep people chewing on it. And if Cardi B is intentionally keeping this undefined, that would make perfect sense in the current media climate. Defined relationships carry expectations. Undefined chemistry carries power. If Cardi B confirms too early, the story becomes about legitimacy. If Cardi B says nothing, the story stays about curiosity. Curiosity travels farther than confirmation most of the time, especially in a digital ecosystem that rewards endless interpretation. So even if Cardi B never says a single word about Maduka Okoye, Cardi B may still be getting exactly what a modern celebrity moment is designed to generate: attention without obligation, intrigue without explanation, and momentum without official labels. But here is the uncomfortable truth for Cardi B. Even if the audience pretends it just wants updates, what it really wants is emotional continuity. People do not want isolated sightings from Cardi B. They want a pattern they can believe in. They want to know whether Cardi B is in a comeback era, a revenge era, a reckless era, a healed era, or a lesson never learned era. That is why a simple dinner clip becomes so emotionally loaded. People are not reacting only to the image. They are reacting to the possibility that the image confirms whatever story they have already been telling themselves about Cardi B. In other words, the public is not just watching Cardi B. It is trying to win an argument through Cardi B. That is why I think the Venice footage hit so hard. Not because it proved anything definitive, but because it gave every existing Cardi B narrative fresh oxygen. If you believe Cardi B is magnetic and impossible to pin down, this supports that. If you believe Cardi B moves fast once she emotionally detaches, this supports that. If you believe Cardi B enjoys keeping people guessing, this supports that too. Very few stars can trigger that many interpretations from one elegant dinner scene. Cardi B can. And that is exactly why Cardi B remains one of the most dissected women in pop culture, whether people are praising her, worrying about her, or judging her in real time. There is also a deeper reason the audience becomes so invested whenever Cardi B's dating life appears to shift. Cardi B built a career by being emotionally legible. Fans feel like they know when Cardi B is angry, amused, defensive, proud, hurt, reckless, or fed up. That perceived transparency creates a dangerous illusion of intimacy. Viewers start believing they can diagnose Cardi B's next move from a 10-second clip because Cardi B has shared so much personality over the years. But personality is not the same thing as access. Familiarity is not the same thing as knowledge. And yet that line gets erased every time Cardi B appears in a new situation, especially with a man the audience is still trying to decode. So now the real question is not, are Cardi B and Maduka Okoye together? The real question is, what kind of story is Cardi B about to let the world tell for her? Because whether Cardi B likes it or not, the public is building meaning in real time. If Cardi B disappears from this rumor entirely, the speculation cools. If Cardi B leans into the ambiguity, the mystery grows. If Cardi B turns up with Maduka Okoye again, this escalates fast. And if Cardi B eventually hard launches someone else entirely, then this Venice chapter turns into one of those glamorous false starts the internet never forgets. That is the strange power of modern celebrity footage. Even a moment that changes nothing can permanently change the storyline. What I keep coming back to is this: Cardi B does not need to confirm a relationship to dominate a headline cycle. Cardi B just needs to be seen in the right frame, next to the right person, at the right moment in her public arc. Paris gave the audience the first spark. Venice gave the audience a stronger image. The next appearance, or the absence of one, will decide the genre of the story. Is this flirtation? Friendship? Transition? Soft launch? Strategic misdirection? The footage does not answer that. But it does something arguably more powerful. It invites millions of people to answer it for themselves. And that is where this entire saga becomes bigger than Cardi B and bigger than Maduka Okoye. It becomes a lesson in how modern fame works. A woman like Cardi B can sit down to dinner and accidentally create a week of debate without saying a single word. A man like Maduka Okoye can become a global talking point because he appeared in the right place beside the right person twice. A media outlet can report no PDA, no confirmation, no certainty, and still ignite a frenzy because uncertainty is the product now. Everybody eats off the maybe. The blogs eat. The reaction channels eat. The fans eat. The critics eat. And the algorithm absolutely eats. So where do I land on it? I think Cardi B knows the heat is real. I think Maduka Okoye is now attached to one of the strongest rumor visuals of the week, and I think the public is once again proving that it does not need official proof to start writing a full emotional screenplay. But I also think the smartest thing to do is keep two truths in your head at once. Truth number 1, the optics are loud. Truth number 2, the facts are still limited. Cardi B was seen with Maduka Okoye in Paris. Cardi B was seen with Maduka Okoye in Venice. TMZ says there was no PDA. Everything beyond that is interpretation, projection, and appetite. Still, do not underestimate appetite, because appetite is what turns a clip into a campaign. If Cardi B shows up with Maduka Okoye again, this story is going to explode into a whole different category. If Cardi B stays quiet, the mystery deepens. If Cardi B denies it, people may not even believe her. That is the level of speculation we are dealing with now. So I want to know where you stand. Was this just a stylish dinner between Cardi B and Maduka Okoye that the internet is predictably overreading? Was Cardi B sending a silent message to Stefon Diggs, to Offset, or to everybody who thinks they can map her future from her past? Or are we watching the early frames of Cardi B's next real headline romance before Cardi B is ready to call it that? One way or another, the next sighting is going to tell us a lot.